So today, the president travels to Florida where he'll lay out two contracts for the American people. He will be joined by Democratic officials in Broward County to discuss how he's lowering costs for the American people. Through the Inflation Reduction Act, the president and congressional Democrats have taken on Big Pharma to allow Medicare to negotiate drug costs for the first time, capping seniors' drug costs at the pharmacy, the cost of insulin, and lowering health insurance premiums for people who get coverage through the Affordable Care Act. Republican officials with Florida's own Senator Rick Scott at the helm, have a very different and very bad vision. Under their millions of Americans would lose health care coverage, benefits, and other long-held protections. They have promised to deliver Big Pharma a win and strip Medicare of negotiate drug prices. And if it couldn't be any worse, Rick has championed a plan to put Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security on the chopping block every 5 years. The president will drive the contrast today, as doing almost every day for the past several months. Will be introduced by a Florida resident and Medicare recipient who will benefit from the Inflation Reduction Act Medicare drug pricing provisions. He'll also reaffirm his and Democrats committed to strengthening Medicare and Social Security. Before I turn it over to questions, you may remember that the last president was here. He committed to supporting the people of Florida as they recover and rebuild from Hurricane Ian. To date, the administration has provided more than $1.4 billion in federal grants, disaster loans, and flood insurance payments to the and people of Florida to help jumpstart their recovery. These resources are providing temporary housing for thousands of households and supporting initiatives like Operation Blue Roof, through which we have installed over 70 roofs. We will continue to do everything we can to support the people of Florida step of the way as they recover and rebuild from the devastating storm. With that, Zeke, you want to take us away?
A couple for you. First up, has the president spoken to Pelosi since their conversation of? Has he been receiving updates on the investigation into the attack on her husband? And has he considered whether he has any authority to step up security for lawmakers, or taking any steps to adjust the nation's threat level as a result of that attack?
You're right. That was a few questions. The first thing is, as you all know, this president spoke to the attack on Speaker Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, this weekend. He has spoken to Speaker Pelosi, as you all know. He said this himself about the horrific attack on her husband, and let her know and let prayers are with Paul and their entire family. And so we're grateful that Paul is expected to recover. Don't have any new phone conversations to share at this time. I think he's just Saturday, right? So the attack was simply unconscionable, and we all have a responsibility to call out this kind of political violence. Law enforcement, they have spoken to this and have held press conferences, as you all know, and they've been very clear and transparent in the details. They've released we'll let them to speak to the facts. Clearly, the president has been kept up to date on the facts, and he's watching just like all of you, and is clearly kept up to date, as I just mentioned. As it relates to action to lawmakers, I would send you to the Capitol Police. They're the ones who provide any protection to congressional members. I would the specific candidates that you all may have in mind, and talk to them about what they're doing for their own candidate as far as it relates to protection. Just share on that.
Brief the president on the investigation, and the president's talked a lot about political violence. We're a week out from the midterm elections. Another incident now of political violence against the husband of the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Isn't the president taking a more urgent tone? Why hasn't he received more briefings on this, and why are you deferring us to agencies and the Capitol Police?
I mean, that the Capitol Police is no congressional members, and campaigns, that is in candidates, right? They are their own campaign, right? So they're not, some of them are not elected. So it is up to their campaign to provide that protection. I think the president has spoken about this very forcefully at the beginning of his speech in Philly. It was the first talked about in a very forceful way, and just condemning all types of political violence. It's something that the president has done very consistently, and he has spoken. If you guys go back to Charlottesville and it's the soul of a nation, and talk. And we all saw this in Charlottesville, and how there was a mob that marched down a street, and a young woman died, and how that political violence place in any type of political discourse. And he also has talked about the importance of protecting our democracy, the importance of democracy. He's spoken about that many, many times, multiple times over the past couple of years. So this is something that the president has taken very seriously. It's one of the reasons, when you think about our democracy, when you think about what we all saw, not back in a few years ago, back in 2017, it is about this. It is about speaking against this. It's about continue to work with Congress to figure out how can we deal with this issue in a real way. And it doesn't matter if you have a D or R of a he is going to continue to call this out.
One last one for me, just on the same topic. What's the president's message to voters who may have seen incidents of political violence, threats against election concerns surrounding the midterms? If they have concerns about their own safety going to the polls, should they feel comfortable casting, going out there Democratic right?
Careful, because you're asking me about midterms, you're asking me about voting, and I just want to put that out there. So I don't want to speak specifically to that, but clearly the president cares about and believes in the sacred right to vote, and Americans being able to have that right. I don't want to get too far into the question, but he has one thing that I can say is that he is taking that very seriously, even with putting out an executive order back in his first year of this administration, on the anniversary of Selma, on everything that he can do from the federal government on how we expand the right to vote and also protect the right to vote. But I don't want to get too far into it. I understand the question. He's going to continue to condemn political violence. You're going to hear that from him anytime there's an opportunity to do that. He has done that about 3 times since we heard about the awful, horrific attacks on Paul Pelosi.
Oh, just a quick question. Sorry. Thank you. Just a quick question on the president's remarks yesterday on oil and gas companies paying higher taxes or facing other restrictions if they do not help lower prices. Is the White House envisioning kind of more of sort of an ad hoc tax here, or something that is perhaps a more permanent fixture of the tax structure? And how does the administration plan to get such a tax passed if Republicans control the House?
Well, so I don't want to get ahead of what may happen in a couple. Okay, that's all right.
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
Okay, great. Sorry, the doors are opening, but the president was very clear yesterday. If oil companies do not change their behavior, he will engage with Congress to hold them accountable. Those who needed to hear this message heard it loud and clear. I don't have any additional meetings or calls to read out, or any specifics on what will happen next, but he wanted to make sure, as he has done many times, to call that out. Of course, the president's team has been meeting regularly with the industry as it relates to meetings. I know folks tend to ask that question. So in response to the letter the president sent to oil executives in June, Secretary Granholm convened a meeting with oil companies to work through solutions and encourage them to increase an output. And you heard from those oil companies, and they themselves said it was a beneficial, effective meeting. Since then, the Department of Energy has held multiple meetings and calls, and White House officials have participated in many of those conversations. But what the president wants to see is action from oil companies. And if he doesn't see that, he will engage directly with Congress. I don't have anything else to share.
What kind of tax was he talking about, though, yesterday? I mean, he spoke about windfall, tax, but like what structure, what form will that take?
Once the president is ready to speak to that, I'm going to let him lay that out, what his vision and what his thinking is on that. Certainly not going to get ahead of him. But again, he wanted to send a very clear message, as he's done many times, and has said if he does not see action or change, accountability, he's going to work with Congress.
And one on the trip today, just in terms of last time the president was there assessing damage from Hurricane Ian, he said he worked really well with Ron DeSantis. All the material we've seen from the White House kind of talks about how he plans to contrast his plans with congressional Republicans. Talk about Rick Scott, but we're not hearing anything about Ron DeSantis. Is he planning to mention DeSantis in his speech? Is he planning to sort of draw a contrast with him?
So I'm just not going to get ahead of what the president's going to say. You guys are going to hear directly from him. I gave you a little bit of flavor of of why we're here. Look, and I also want to be very careful and not getting into the politics here. But look, he's coming to Florida today, as I just laid out, to talk about the two contrasting visions for the American people, whether they be in Florida or any state around the country. And so you've heard him do that for almost every day for the past several months. One side, and he's been very clear, and I'll say this again, the president is focused on, which is the president and congressional Democrats are focused on lowering costs for the American people through the Inflation Reduction Act. And he's taken on Big Pharma and won, which lower drug prices and more. Meanwhile, on the other side, with Rick Scott at the helm, as I said at the top, the first thing that they want to do is repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, which will increase costs when you look at healthcare, when you think about energy costs, and also put on the chopping block Medicare, Social Security, and that is something that will hurt American people. And so he's going to make that contrast today. I'm going to let him speak to it in more detail, but that's what you're going to hear from the president today.
On Haiti, the Secretary of State spoke with his Chinese counterpart and visited Canada recently, where Haiti was at the top of the agenda. Is the president personally involved in trying to corral members of the Security Council around a resolution for a multilateral force? What does he want to see, and what kind of timeline are we looking at, given everyone has been saying it's an urgent matter?
The president, the security, when it comes to what you have seen, the action by our UN ambassador at the UN, of course, that is something that the president signed off on, right? That is something that the president believes as a way forward with Haiti. Look, we remain committed to supporting the people of Haiti. We are devastated as well as what we're seeing in the country. Conversations are ongoing with partners on the UN Security Council to advance the draft solution authorizing under Chapter 7, as you know, the UN, the non-UN mission. We recently delivered Haitian government purchased security equipment, including tactical and armed vehicles and supplies that will assist the Haitian National Police in their fight against criminal actors. And USAID staff is on the ground now working alongside Haitian health workers and NGOs to respond to the outbreak and deliver care to those who need it. We will also continue to engage the international community on additional actions we can take at the United Nations. Clearly, this is something that the president supported. It is at his direction that you're seeing this action at USAID, and also, as you've heard from our UN ambassador there. And so, again, the conversations are ongoing, and we're going to play our part in doing everything that we can for the people of Haiti.
To follow up on what Zeke was asking earlier, is the administration worried about increased violence and threats of violence in the next week? And what are they doing to protect democracy, as you said, which the president so values? Like, what steps is the federal government taking?
So, look, it's fundamentally important that people exercise their right to vote. That is something that I can't say and will say here. The federal government is committed to working with our state and local partners to ensure the security of our election system, from voter registration all the way to vote tabulation. So, the administration takes the issue of threats to the safety of election officials very seriously. Last week, the agencies tasked with protecting the security of our elections, including the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the Capitol Police, issued a notice to ensure that local law enforcement is alerted to the threat posed by domestic violent extremists, so they can deploy their resources accordingly. And look, we have faith in the efforts of these agencies that are all involved and all hands on deck to work alongside state and local election officials to take necessary steps to keep people safe. Any specifics, I would certainly refer you to those individual agencies. But again, this is a president that fundamentally believes the importance of American people exercising their right to vote.
Will the president do a press conference the day after the midterms, as several previous presidents have done?
I am very sure that you will be hearing from the president after he'll be delivering remarks after Tuesday, after the elections. Don't have anything.
Questions.
Have more to share on that. Go ahead.
On the policy differences that the White House has been highlighting, how does the president see that message resonating with 1 week to go?
I mean, if you think about all of the issues that I've just laid out, what we're trying to do, right? We are trying to protect Medicare. We are trying to protect Social Security. We are trying to lower costs for the American people. These are issues, again, and you guys, ask me about polls all the time. You guys see this over and over again. These are issues that are important to the American people, that are critical to the American people. And so that's what we're trying to do. That's what the president has been working on practically every day with congressional Democrats, and hence the Inflation Reduction Act, which will help with healthcare and energy costs. And you literally, just look at Rick Scott's 12-point plan. That 12-point plan says it will sunset after 5 years Medicare and Social Security. These are if you think about it, these are programs that are helping American people, helping our seniors. And so the contrast could not be starker, and the choice could not be more clear.
You think the message is getting through? That's the question.
The message is getting through. You just have to hear and see what the president, when he's in these different states. We do. When you see that the American people react to these programs that are important to them, yes, we do. We do think that it's getting through.
Karine, can you? You've got a Fed decision coming up tomorrow, but on inflation broadly, putting aside the Fed, what is the administration's reading of the current situation on inflation? Has it peaked? Are you hopeful? How do you see the lay of the land?
This week, the new economic reports, as you know, I know you follow this very closely, including GDP and PCE, showed we are making progress on our economic plan, lower inflation, higher incomes, higher wages, and solid economic growth. In the last quarter, we saw a 2.6% economic growth as it relates to the GDP. Inflation slowed in the third quarter, as I just mentioned, with energy prices coming down. Gas prices have declined over $1.20 since the summer's peak. Okay, thank you. And so we know we have more work to do. The president understands that the American people are feeling that squeeze, which is why he's worked every day, especially during the summer, to lower those gas prices. And that's why the Inflation Reduction Act is so critical as well, to lower prices.
On addressing the debt limit in the lame duck, this is one of the tools with Social Security and Medicare.
And I know you guys have asked me this question. We're not going to get ahead of next week, but certainly stay tuned. All right, guys, we got to sit. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.